We're sisters, best friends, and authors on a mission to help you stoke your creative fire and live the life of your dreams. We believe that purpose fuels passion and that creativity is your secret weapon for mass construction. There's never been a better time to bless the world with your dream realized. You're listening to The Kate and Abbie Show.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Kate and Abbie Show. We're super stoked to have you here. Are you in the midst of writing a story that you're passionate about? Or maybe you're planning the novel of your dreams. When you're there at your desk alone, scribbling or typing away, listening to your favorite playlist, you feel on top of the world, like you're giving it your all, and you are dang proud of this book. But then someone asks you that often overwhelming question, what's your book about? And you feel like your explanation just kind of falls flat. If what I've just described sounds familiar, you're not alone. Giving others the lowdown on your book in a tight, succinct explanation is a task easier said than done. We've been there, done that, and today Abbie and I are going to give you some of our own personal tips for how to speak about your writing with confidence like the boss you are. Before we get started, we have to thank our sponsors, who are you. That's right. You are the ones who support this show and keep it going, and we appreciate you so much. So if you get value out of this podcast, please go to patreon.com/The Kate and Abbie Show and help us keep this show alive and free of interruptions. So let's dig right in.
Yeah, let's get into
Talking about your writing with confidence takes a lot. It can take a lot of trial and error sometimes, because I think as writers, first of all, a lot of us are more on the what would be a lot of people would call introverted or quiet lone wolf side.
Yeah.
So it can be hard to feel like you're putting yourself out there in such a way that you're making sense, you're making your book sound as good as you know it is. For me, that was always a source of frustration, was being proud of my writing and stoked about my writing, but not being able to convey that.
Yeah.
In a succinct way that made sense, that was a good, tight explanation of what the book is about. But I think that there are ways that we can boost our own confidence. That's really where it starts, is us becoming more confident in who we are and what we're doing, not just about the particular story, but about our ability in our own writing.
Yeah, because that's really like the root of it. That's the thing behind the thing is, well, why do I feel this way about, speaking about my book or anything that you create or anything you do? Even if you're introducing yourself and talking about what you do for work, even if you aren't a full-time writer or author, being able to describe and tell people about what you do and what you're passionate about and what you love in a confident way is not something that comes natural to everybody. So I think you have to look at like the thing behind the thing. What is it that is causing me to feel insecure or nervous about this?
Yeah, exactly. I think that eliminate the word just. Eliminate the word just. It does small psychological damage because it's constantly telling yourself, it's not really a big deal. It's not really that serious. It's just this, it's just this, that little thing, that little hobby. It's just that, you know what I mean? It's small affirmations of something that is a misbelief. Yeah. It is a misbelief because when you are working hard and passionately on a writing career or any creative career, you need to believe in that. You need to introduce yourself with confidence. When someone asks you like, oh, what do you do for a living? Or what are you working on as a side I'm working on a book. I'm a writer. This is what it is. And don't say, oh, well, I'm just, don't start like that. There's no reason to start like that. And it just sends small messages to your own mind that there's a plan B option. And I've found that for myself, having a plan B constantly in your mind will screw you up psychologically. It's a small, like, whispering voice that's like, this might not work out. So, you better be thinking about something else.
Yeah.
Like negative ASMR at night. What if your writing fails?
Yeah.
You better have a backup plan.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So you need to not give yourself a backup plan. And I don't mean if you are embarking on a writing career and you're still working a different job, you know, working a job and writing. I'm not talking about that at all. That's great. I'm talking about if you're like thinking, okay, if this doesn't work out, then what am I going to do? Like, don't give yourself that option. Let yourself fully be confident in the fact that this is what you're going for. You're going all in, you're going for the gold, and you need to believe in that sense of purpose you have. Believe in that passion, trust that passion, and the grit is going to help you endure whatever hardships come up on that path.
Yeah. Having a vision is really important, I think, for that. Is looking to what do you imagine for the future of this book or this story that you're writing. And if you can clearly imagine a future that is similar to whatever is another author that you aspire to be like, or who inspires you. If you've seen other books be successful, maybe get adapted into movies or TV shows, and you're like, I want that, then think about that for your own writing. And when you're writing, imagine it not as a pipe dream and something that you just hope will happen, but imagine it as something that already exists on another plane of reality, so to speak. Like a little bit of a fourth dimension vibe going on. But if you look at time not as linear, but as like a now slice.
Yes.
You could already tap into seeing your future with your story, with your writing, and assuming the feeling of that is what is going to make that happen. And I know we're getting kind of like spooky here, but that's like firmly what I believe.
Science. It really is. If you do a little research on Einstein and some of the stuff he talked about, or if not, just go watch, I think it's the Nova episode of like The Illusion of Time. I think it's free on YouTube or something. That episode of Nova, which if you're not familiar with, it's like a science show. It's awesome, and it will just change the way you look at your life. It will change the way you look at your dreams and your goals.
Yeah. And if you can like have this clear vision of that's already going to happen, then how would you carry yourself? How would you talk about your book or let's say in another way, if you can fast forward to that time, in that point in time where your book is really successful, and then you could like go back in time, would you change the way you talked about your book now?
Right.
Probably.
Exactly.
If you like had a guarantee that it would be successful, and wouldn't be like, oh, well, this might fail, this might work, I don't really know.
Right. You would be so much more confident in yourself.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be constantly doubting yourself and or talking yourself down. That's another thing that I see quite a few writers that I've encountered fall into, is they'll actually like down talk themselves, like, oh my gosh, it's a mess, it's not really that good. Don't talk about your book being bad. Like, really don't. Now, if you're with your writing buddy and you're laughing and, all in good fun about like some edits you made or how the first draft was really messy, that's fine. But when I see so many beautiful authors starting out that will be like, my book's a mess and it's it's really garbage, it's never gonna be any, like, don't say that. Oh my gosh, first of all, everyone's book feels like that, like at one time or another. I don't care what you're writing. You could Jane Austen probably felt that way halfway through Pride and Prejudice. I'm sure there were moments when she's like, oh, this is a mess. And you can't judge the value of the book based off of that emotion, because all it is a passing emotion that every single writer has. And it shouldn't really be an emotion that you share with others, especially people who are asking about your book out of genuine interest and curiosity about you. Just say, hey, it's a book about this. And if you're not comfortable with like sharing a bunch of information, you don't have to. Right. That's something I've discovered for myself, that you don't have to feel like I need to have this blurb memorized in my head that I can just say it every time someone asks what the book is about. A lot of times people don't care that much about every detail of what your book is about plot wise. They just want to know generally what it's about. And another thing that you can revert to is, what does it mean to you? I love this book because of, what is it? What is it you love about the book? Because most of the time, people are just interested in, why are you taking on the initiative of writing a book, period. Because that's a pretty big undertaking. Most people will never do that. Most people never write a book. So if you're like, oh, I love science fiction. I've always loved science fiction. I grew up on science fiction. And I thought, you know what, I love these characters I came up with in my head. One is, an alien from this planet, and the other is a girl from Earth, and they meet and have space adventures. And I'm just really passionate about science fiction. There we go. I said a little tiny bit about the book, but hardly anything, mostly why I'm passionate about it. And that speaks to people actually a lot more than dispensing a big blurb breakdown of everything that happens in your book. So you don't even need to have this long explanation.
Yeah.
What people really want to know is, why are you doing it?
Yeah. I think there's like this disconnect from passion in today's world more than, I don't know if it's always been like this, but I see a lot of people who are almost like embarrassed by their own passion for something, like the science fiction thing, like you said, and they don't realize that it's actually extremely attractive and cool and like makes you look really confident when you are confident in being passionate about something, like outwardly. Like if you're ranting about how much you love science fiction and that's why you write science fiction, rather than just being like, oh yeah, it's a science fiction, it's whatever, I'm like kind of into that, and like kind of downplaying it. Yeah. Even though you're really actually very excited about it. First of all, if you talk about it more, you will find more people like you, like-minded people who are also really passionate about it, and probably make some great friends. And secondly, it makes you so much more cool and confident if you can be expressive and passionate about something that you actually genuinely love, just based on, I love this and I don't really care what other people think about me because I love this,
Yeah, and don't say like, oh, I know it's geeky, but...
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing.
Well, you know what it is? It's cool. It's unique. It makes you stand out from the crowd. It makes us want to draw closer to learn the fuller message, not only about you, but about what you're creating and what experience we can gain from reading your book or watching your film or reading your, screenplay, poems, whatever, that's what interests us. Yeah. So really, I agree with you 100%. Own that.
Yeah, own it.
Don't write it off as like nerdiness or geekiness. Own that thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
it's so cool.
Imagine if like the writer of Star Wars was like, oh, I'm just like a geek about this like space travel, warring in outer space thing. It's like, no, when you're truly convicted about it, you'll have millions of people who are falling over themselves to be nerdy and geeky about your thing you created.
You'll make it its own religion.
You'll make it its own religion. Like, so it starts with you being a confident disciple of your own thing. Exactly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, so just own that. Own the geekiness and be okay, be comfortable with sharing your passion about it, not just what the story is about, because that's secondary to your passion for it.
Yeah. And just like as a side note, truly self-deprecating, like you were saying about the self-deprecating negative self-talk thing, people who are truly like self-deprecating and you can tell that they actually are insecure and they're like actually putting themselves down, it's like very awkward to be around a person who's doing that. It's like makes you uncomfortable to listen to that, and you feel like you have to defend them for them and be like, no, you're not like that, your writing isn't like that, and like try to make them feel better.
Especially for someone if they've never read the writing, then it's like, I don't even have anything to say to make you feel better, so now I just feel sad and I don't know what to do.
Exactly. It's like mentally exhausting, and it makes that person seem less and less confident, you know?
Right.
They're definitely not confident because you can tell that they're actually like insecure in their own writing or in themselves, and that's why they're self-deprecating, either themselves or their writing. And there is a difference. There's like a fine line between that and then like using self-deprecation very tastefully as humor.
Tastefully using self-deprecation.
Very infrequently. Like there's a way to do it,
right.
But the only way it is actually,
if you're confident in yourself,
the only way it's like attractive and cool is if you are confident in yourself, and you can tell, wow, that person's like really confident and bold, and they just made like a silly self-deprecating joke, but you can tell they don't even care. It's
right,
not coming from insecurity,
yes.
So it's actually funny, and you feel like actually, you feel more attracted to them. You know?
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but in my opinion, that is not even self-deprecating at that point. Most of the time, like the humor I've heard that's like that, it's more like a person is confident enough in themselves that they can point out mistakes they made and laugh about it.
Yeah.
Or point out like, you know, silly habits they have and laugh about it because they're so confident that it doesn't make them feel insecure or afraid to point out a mistake and make it into just a lighthearted moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's not even really putting yourself down. It's that you're not afraid to be human.
Right.
kind of.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So true. And also it's part of the owning it thing. Like just own what you're into and enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Let it be a part of you and be proud of it.
Yeah. I think that's a huge component of it, is just being comfortable with your whatever it is you're writing about, however you're doing it. Just own that thing, and don't feel like you need to live up to someone else's process. We talk about that all the time on this show. Don't feel like you need to match someone else's process, and you're kind of like, oh well, I do it in this way that not a lot of other writers do it, and so I don't really like to, you know, like share that. Who cares? Cool. You do it differently? Cool. You know, people want fresh new things. So no matter what, like, own it, because people like to hear about artists who are doing something differently.
Yeah.
Doing something against the grain of how it's normally done.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah. And if you have a book that's already out there or some material that is already published and you're talking to somebody about it, I think another thing that, and this might feel like kind of awkward at first, like a little bit of a push outside your comfort zone, but I think it's important to do, is when somebody asks you about your book and let's say it's already published, telling them if they actually have genuine interest in it and they're not just using it as a conversation starter or like something to say, if you can see that they're actually genuinely interested in it, like prompting them to read it. Yeah. And being like, hey, by the way, my book is called blah, 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 and my name's spelled like this, or like if you have a little business card or something, like prompt them to read it and be like, hey, I think you should check it out. Or like, if you like this, yada, yada, like if they say that they like something else that's similar, then you'll probably like my book. And like pushing yourself outside your comfort zone to actually like in person try to convince somebody to read your book is going to do you like so much psychological like growth in the direction of confidence, rather than just being like, oh yeah, that's the thing I do, next topic. Like like actually, if the person seems actually into it, be like, oh hey, it's called this, I think you'd really like it, you like that other thing, you'll love this. Especially
if someone asks you, and I've had this happen, where people are like, oh, hey, you know, you write science fiction? I love Star Wars. What's your book about? They've already basically, they're kind of inviting themselves to potentially read your book. So don't be like, oh, well, you know, it's just a science fiction thing. It's not anywhere near as good as anything you've read. So like, don't even waste your time listening to me talk about it. But thank you so much for even thinking about me for 1 second. It's like, don't do that. They're interested. They want to know more. So if you have someone who's already like, oh, you know, hey, I like Game of Thrones. I heard you write books about, you know, dragons attacking other planets and stuff. Like, what's that? Because I like that kind of thing. Tell them more, invite them to read. And I love the business card idea. That's actually something I've thought about before, because I've had a lot of people be like, wait, what's it called? And they're like trying to find like an old receipt to write it on. I'm like, I wish I had a little card. And I've seen authors who do that. And I'm like, dang, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to just, especially in today's world of everything is digital. Like, oh, wait, let me text it to myself. Let me write that. Let me make a memo of that.
Like they're more likely to lose it on their phone than
and just not look at it
a
again.
Piece of paper.
Yeah. Whereas when you have it in your hand, you're like, oh, I'm going to go, look at that.
Bookmarks would be even better.
That's a cool idea.
That'd be good for like your series, because you have like your series, the little mock-up of like all 4 books.
Oh, wow. That's a great thought. Yeah. There you go, guys. There's a free idea.
Yeah.
For all you guys who have published books out there, or even books you're getting ready to publish. Pro tip. I'm gonna do that now.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But yeah, I think just be confident enough to talk about why you love what you do, and don't ever feel like, oh, I need to blend in more, or I need to not sound like too prideful about this. Like, just own it and relax into talking about it.
Right. Especially if you're trying to make writing your career. Mm-hmm. Like at some point you're going to be calling yourself an author, so finding that confidence in being able to say, I'm an author and I wrote, XYZ, that is only going to serve you later on in your career. Like if you're serious about writing your career, then I'm all about crossing those hurdles, getting over those obstacles early on if they're smaller. Yeah. Like, oh, just one little uncomfortable conversation. Well, someday maybe you'll be in a room like pitching your book to a really important person. And if you never got through those little uncomfortable conversations, you wouldn't be able to handle that bigger, more important conversation.
Yeah.
So crossing the little hurdles at the beginning of your career, I think, is so important. And that can be applied to anything, not just talking about your book, and can be applied to just having good social skills and being able to introduce yourself and meet people and network. And all of that comes from a place of confidence, being confident in yourself, confident in your ideas and your abilities, and being able to put yourself out there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And you just need to keep in mind, just be yourself and don't feel like you have to match some standard of, oh, I need to be able to really dispense quickly and succinctly every single thing that happens in my book. I remember years ago, this was a long time ago, with a different book that is an unpublished manuscript that I was considering publishing, sitting down with my then manager and her going over with me like, okay, we're gonna start with this exercise of, you're gonna go through every single thing that happens in your book, and you're just verbally going to tell me linearly every single thing that happens, because this is gonna help you be able to tell people what your book is about. And all it did was give me like just about a stomach ulcer because I'm like, I don't remember like each piece like this. And I'm not good at being able to describe in detail every single thing. It was like so much stress sweat. It was ridiculous. But what I learned from that experience is that's not what people really want to hear about. When they ask you what your book is about, they're mostly wanting to know, why are you passionate about this particular thing? So if you are ever on the spot and you're like, oh geez, I don't really even know how to put this in words, maybe it's a really complicated concept, some of you fantasy writers out there, fall back on, why do I love this? Why do I love writing this? And you can just literally default to, well, I'm writing this book because I really love the concept of blending contemporary and fantasy and some paranormal elements. And so I have like, it's a switching point of views, and I'm really loving it. Most people, that is enough for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So always, like, when in doubt, default to, why do you love it? And just let whatever wells up kind of express itself.
Yeah. And that also might change. Mm-hmm. That answer might change as time goes on and as your book develops more, or even after it's published. The way you look at it might change, and what's important to you now might be different than what was important to you when you wrote it or when you were thinking about it. Mm-hmm. That always amazes me when I read reviews for my book and see that like so many people get different meaning out of it. And that's like one of the most rewarding things, I think, of being a published author, is being able to see your readers love it and get something different out of it. Like everybody gets something different out of it, and it's so cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. I think that's important too. I always, as someone who, I've published I'm getting ready to publish my 5th book now, and I really don't like to tell people too much like what it means to me and what it's about. And I'm sure you feel the same way with your book. It's like you want it, it's theirs too. It's their book. Once they buy it and open it and it's in their home, it's in their hands, it's in their space, these characters and the settings are all subject to their own imagination. So really, it's mind-boggling to me when you think about how every single reader is having a different experience with your book than the next person. So it's really, I like to respect that space and respect that sacred relationship that the author has with the reader, that it's, let it be their own too. I don't want to impose my thoughts or my visions on them. I want them to have their own journey, just like what you were saying.
Yeah, that's so true. Very, very good point. I agree. So yeah, I think we covered a lot in this episode about talking confidently about your book. If you enjoyed this episode of the Kate and Abbie Show, share it with your friends, especially writer friends who are having trouble or feeling insecure about their writing. Perfect episode for them.
Definitely.
And be sure to leave us a nice rating. Also, if you haven't seen the video version of this podcast, if you're listening on an audio platform, check out the video version that's on Kate's YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/KAEmmons. And you can also find some great writing resources on my channel, which is youtube.com/AbbieEmmons. Again, thank you to our patrons who support this show. Your support makes this show possible and keeps it interruption free. So if you get value out of this podcast, go to patreon.com/The Kate and Abbie Show and help us keep this show on YouTube and all the other platforms. Until next time,
stay stoked
and rock on.